Alright, what's up guys? Welcome to Promotech. Thanks for tuning in. A quiet code discovery inside iOS 27 just revealed how Apple is actually building the iPhone 18 Pro Max this year. And buried in there are the real reasons this phone is about to cost more, feel different in your hand, and quietly signal how Apple is repositioning its entire lineup going forward. None of this was announced. All of it was found. Let's dive right into the video. Start with the timing, because even that tells you something. If Apple sticks to its usual pattern, the Pro Max gets announced on September 9th, pre-orders open September 11th, and the phone actually ships September 18th. That's not a random guess. That's Apple following almost the exact same calendar shape it used back in 2015, and the company has only broken that September window once in the last decade, back when the pandemic pushed things back a week. The reason this matters is simple. When a company sticks to a rigid release rhythm like that, it usually means the bigger changes are happening quietly on the inside, not through some dramatic shift in when you'll actually see the phone. And this year, the inside is where almost everything interesting is happening. Now the price jump, because this is the part hitting everyone's wallet directly. Analysts now expect the iPhone 18 Pro Max to launch nearly $200 above what most people were originally expecting. And the reason traces back to two components most users will never physically see. The A20 Pro chip is rumored to be the first smartphone processor built on TSMC's 2nm process, and that manufacturing node is currently one of the most expensive in the entire chip industry. On top of that, Apple is reportedly cutting Qualcomm out of this phone entirely, replacing it with its own second-generation C2 modem, a homegrown part stepping in after more than a decade of dependence on outside modem hardware. Two brand-new, first-of-their-kind components arriving in the same device in the same generation is not a coincidence. Compare that to previous Pro Max price increases, which usually came from a bigger camera sensor or an extra storage tier. This time the cost is baked into the foundation itself, the chip and the modem, the exact two parts you never look at but rely on every single time you open an app, load a photo, or check for signal. Speaking of that modem, here's the detail people are underestimating. A second-generation C2 modem isn't just a spec bump on paper. It represents Apple building an independent communication system that no longer leans on Qualcomm and isn't fully tied to traditional cell towers either. Leaks point to stronger Wi-Fi 7 performance, more advanced satellite connectivity, and early groundwork for sending short messages or emails from areas with zero cell coverage. That sounds like a minor feature until you're actually the person standing in a dead zone, and the Pro Max somehow still gets your message out. That's the kind of upgrade you don't appreciate on a spec sheet, only in the exact moment you actually need it. And there's a bigger picture reason Apple is pushing so hard on its own modem right now. Every year Apple stays dependent on Qualcomm. It pays licensing fees and loses a bit of control over its own release timeline. A working, competitive in-house modem means Apple stops sharing that leverage, and the Pro Max becomes the first real proof that Apple can go the entire distance without outside modem hardware. Then there's the front of the phone, and this is the change that's going to surprise people the second they pick it up. Apple is reportedly shrinking the dynamic island on the Pro Max by roughly 35%, moving more of the Face ID hardware underneath the display panel itself. Set that side by side with the current Pro Max, and you're looking at a noticeably smaller cutout eating into your screen on a design that's barely evolved since the iPhone 14 Pro first introduced the pill shape. But here's the part nobody mentions. Smaller isn't automatically simpler to build. Every millimeter of sensor space Apple removes from that visible cutout has to be recovered somewhere else in the internal stack, usually through more advanced, more expensive under-display components. So yes, the front of the Pro Max looks cleaner, but you're quietly paying for the engineering behind that cleaner look, and that connects right back to why this exact model is priced higher than people expected. It's also worth pointing out that Apple has kept the same basic island shape for 4 straight generations. A 35% reduction isn't a minor tweak. It's the first real signal that Apple thinks it's finally solved enough of the underlying sensor problem to actually shrink it after years of teasing a smaller cutout without delivering one. Now the camera, and this is where the Pro Max might actually separate itself the most this generation. A variable aperture lens has been rumored for iPhone for years without ever shipping, but this round of leaks is specific enough to take seriously a physically adjustable aperture that opens wider for low-light shots and background blur, then narrows for sharper landscapes and group photos. Compare that to how Apple has approached this in past Pro Max models, mostly relying on computational tricks and software processing to fake similar results. Building it with actual moving hardware is a much bigger commitment, more expensive to produce, more components that can wear down over years of daily use, but it delivers genuinely more accurate results straight out of the sensor. Add in a new stacked image sensor reportedly co-developed with Samsung specifically for this phone, designed to pull in more light without growing the camera bump any larger, and Apple looks like it's trying to win this generation on real hardware, not just clever software. What makes this interesting is the trade-off Apple is accepting. A mechanical aperture means more moving parts inside a phone that's supposed to survive years of pocket drops and daily handling. And Apple rarely takes on that kind of long-term reliability risk unless the payoff in image quality is significant enough to justify it. One more piece worth mentioning before wrapping up. The Pro Max is expected to keep its Grade 5 titanium frame while adding a new graphene cooling system underneath, alongside a battery capacity rumored around 5,500 mAh. That combination might add a little extra weight, but it directly targets the biggest complaint Pro Max owners have voiced for 2 generations straight: thermal throttling during heavy gaming or long video editing sessions. Pairing that cooling system with the efficiency of a 2-nanometer chip suggests Apple is finally treating sustained performance with the same seriousness as peak performance, and that's a quiet shift that says a lot about where this line is actually headed. There's also a color story attached to this generation. Reports suggest Apple could introduce a new dark cherry finish, replacing one of the existing Pro Max colors entirely, which historically has only happened when Apple wants a specific model year to feel visually distinct enough to justify people upgrading purely on looks. Here's the thing about all of this. The modem, the smaller island, the variable aperture, the cooling system, none of it shows up in a 30-second spec comparison video. These are the kinds of details you only really notice a few months into owning the phone. That's exactly why over 70% of you watching this right now aren't subscribed yet. And that's fine, but if you're someone who wants the real reasoning behind these decisions before it becomes common knowledge everywhere else, that's genuinely what this channel exists for. Hit subscribe if that's you. It takes 2 seconds, and it's what keeps these deep dives coming instead of the surface-level spec dumps everyone else is putting out. So here's where it gets interesting going forward. If the Pro Max is already absorbing a nearly $200 increase this generation just from chip and modem costs, and Apple's reportedly building an even more premium Ultra tier to sit above it down the line, what does that actually mean for the Pro Max next year? Does it stay the flagship everyone assumes it is? Or does it quietly slide into becoming the new middle option? That's the part one keep coming back to, and I don't think Apple's shown its full hand yet. Take care and stay safe. I'll see you in the next one soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.